And we are justified by grace through faith as a gift of God and not as the result of any works that we do. So says St. Paul, and of course, for Lutherans, Paul is often considered the canon within the canon. His exposition and statement of the gospel is what set Luther free and really started theologically the whole Reformation. We are justified by faith through grace as a gift of God, not the results of any works. So what do we do with St. Paul and Matthew 25? Because this sure sounds like God, after all, is keeping score. That works are not only expected, but that God is checking list. Oh, Tom gave a cup of water to somebody. Good for Tom. Oh, Bill let that hungry guy walk right by him. Check mark there. As if God, after all, is an accountant. And at the end of time, we simply show up, the ledgers are brought out, and we find out, did we pass? Because then it becomes the question, has to haunt us, doesn't it? How many of you are confident if you died right now, you've done enough? How many of you are just afraid to raise your hand? You know, that's the challenge. If God is simply keeping tabs on us, when have we ever done enough? Because I'm guessing everyone here has done something for the poor. You've given the cup of water, you've offered the meal to the hungry, you've helped clothe the naked, you've been a visitor at the side of a lonely person. I'm guessing we've all done that in some way, and I'm also guessing we've all not done it at another time. So when is enough enough? To understand Matthew 25 is first of all to understand that this is not a prequel of Judgment Day. This is a parable. It's actually the last parable Jesus tells in this section we've been reading through during this Lenten season, some very difficult, but this is a parable nonetheless, and as a parable, it has a twist in it. All Jesus' parables have that little twist and hook that catch us off guard. But before we get to that, Matthew, when he tells the story of Jesus, presents Jesus in many ways as a new Moses, a new teacher in Israel, the one who lays out for the people of God what it is that they are to do. And writers in the first century, I like to tell folks in Bible study this, they didn't have the advantage that we have of highlighters. You know, you read through something, oh, that sounds pretty good, and you highlight it and it just sticks out at you. And they didn't have changeable fonts. So the important pieces couldn't be bolded or put in a text box within the text. They used other techniques. One of them is called bracketing, and you just have to think of that like two parentheses. And brackets exist, and they define part of the story, and they give clues by what's in the bracket to how to understand everything that falls between them. And now you and I aren't trained to read looking for brackets, but folks in the first century, that's the way their minds worked. And this is the closing bracket to Jesus' opening bracket in his teaching, which was way back in chapter 5, what we call the Sermon on the Mount. And there he talks about what it means to be a person in the kingdom. And he says, blessed are the poor. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who are persecuted for my name's sake. Blessed, you know those blessings. Poor in spirit, maker of peace. And then at the end, I was hungry and you gave me food. Thirsty you gave me drink. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick or in prison. You took time out to be with me. And as I said to the kids up here, both groups, the doers and the leavers, both groups had one response. When? Both groups are as confused as ever. Us? When did we? When didn't we? And Jesus says, did you ever pay attention to the people most in need around you? The poor? The outcast? The undocumented worker? The welfare parent? The mentally ill, challenged person out on the streets? Did you ever pay attention to them? The ones that people don't like to see or think about or get close to. I was in them. I was present there. And when you helped or didn't help them, then it was that you were ministering or withholding service from me. This parable makes us really, really want to be a sheep. Bah. Rah. And really makes us hope we're not a goat. Yeah. But this parable is going to lead immediately into the events that will culminate in the death of Jesus. And after the supper, when Jesus will say, I'm not going to drink of this cup again until I drink it with you in the kingdom of heaven. And after he prays all night in the garden, and after he is betrayed by one of his own and taken away and spends a day in front of multiple courts being condemned, and after he is beaten, and after he is mocked, he is led away to be crucified. I'm guessing he was hungry. He hadn't eaten at all. He was hungry. And nobody gave him anything to eat. And from the cross, he says, as John tells the story, I'm thirsty. And nobody quenches his thirst. And they strip him of his clothes and gamble those away and leave him naked, and nobody covers him. And at the end, he is alone. I know some of the women tried to stay close by. And they cried out their broken hearts, but everybody else either abandoned him or mocked him. Nobody gave him that kind of time and attention that reminds somebody that they're a human being. When Jesus says, I was hungry and thirsty and naked and lonely and imprisoned, he looks into the next few days and describes himself at that moment. And which of us would have been the exception to the rule? Run out with a snack, shared our water, offered him some clothing to cover his nakedness, would have made our way through the guards to try to offer a friendly word. Who would have done it? None of us? Would we, like those of his own time, clearly have put ourselves in the goat group? Probably. Certainly. Absolutely. if you're saying, no, I'm the exception, I'm not going to hold my hand up because I'm a Lutheran, I'm supposed to be humble, but I'm the exception, I'd have done it, then Jesus says to us, but you weren't there, but you are here, and the poor are all around you, and when have you done it for them? No, we all find ourselves on the goat side. But St. Paul had it right when he says, while we were still his enemies, Christ died for us. You get that? It wasn't that we were trying to be his friends and not really making a good job of it. While we were still his enemies, Christ died for us. And that is why he says, we are justified by grace through faith, as a gift from God, and not as the result of anything we do. The sheep and the goats is not a parable to leave us feeling guilty or making us wonder, have we really done enough? It is one more way to contemplate this mystery that is the power of grace, and to recognize that Jesus is going to welcome us into the kingdom. And not because we were perfect, or met the mark, or had a positive ledger balance. He's going to welcome us because he is grace-giving. But he does invite us to know what it is to love the least of these, and to discover in that act the powerful reality of serving him who has served us. Amen.